All right, this is lecture 1.2. Just like with lecture 1.1, you'll take notes in your packet. Afterwards, you'll take your quiz on Schoology on it. Remember, you can take that as many times as you want up until the unit test. Just like last time, you'll turn these notes in at the end of the unit, and you will also use them to study with for the unit test and the AP test. Okay? Continuing the theme from last time is many of the key terms we're going to be using this year in the other 6 units that'll be content and skill specific. And so this section is about different key terms around referring to regions on maps, names of places on maps, and the arrangement of things, items on maps. Okay, so again, just more map reading terminology. First is the word toponym. So academics, geographers, social scientists, they like to use fancier words, more academic words to refer to things. And so when you hear the word toponym, that's just a fancy word for a place name. They often are related to the physical environment, indigenous names, especially here in North and South America. In Australia and other places that were colonized. Colonizers had a heavy influence, so bringing over names from their home countries or their religions, and then following up on that is religion. So can be influenced by all kinds of things, but you will often be asked about what influence is evident in a name. Okay, so we're going to give you some examples. So Madomic, for example, is an Abenaki word. I think it refers to something about maybe the land of many fish or many alewives. Camden was named after a British earl. That demonstrates the impact of colonizers. St. Louis, San Diego, both of those related to a saint, and that shows the impact of colonizers in the case of French or Spanish, and also religion, so the saints. So Catholic religion, Christianity being brought in by colonizers. So toponyms can take all kinds of forms and relate to different things, but you will often be asked about what impact does a specific toponym demonstrate, like colonization, religion, indigenous names. All right, when we talk about places, we will either talk about we can talk about their site or their situation. The site refers to that place's physical location. So this is a picture of Venice. So its site is in the Venetian Lagoon, which is a part of the larger Adriatic Sea. That's its site, its physical location. Situation is describing a location in relation to others. So again, this is Venice, but it was constructed there, grew up there because of its strategic location for trade between Mediterranean and Adriatic countries. So there we're describing its location in relation to other countries trading with it, so its strategic location. Site versus situation, terms we'll come back to this year. All right, moving on, and we'll connect this with kind of an in-class mini project you're going to do about the cultural landscape of one place. When you describe the landscape of a place, what comes to mind is probably the geology, the vegetation, the climate, so that's the landscape. The cultural landscape includes those things, especially as they relate to influencing how the humans develop and the culture that develops. The cultural landscape also describes their religion, architecture, clothing, food, art, all kinds of things that are influencing the humans there and its interaction with the environment. So it is all those things working together to create the unique culture of that place. Okay. When describing different places in the world or different regions, there are a couple different specific vocabulary words related to those regions. So when talking about a formal region or a uniform region, they mean the same thing. That is a region, a place with an actual recognized border. So for example, a state or a province or a country or a lake or a river, some place that has some kind of recognized border that can be identified on a map. Example, California in this case, Mexico, Canada, the US, any of our states and territories, formal regions. functional serve a purpose and are usually organized around a central node. So it's not a place with a border, but the region serves some kind of purpose to the people there, and again, usually has a central hub. So that could be like a radio broadcast area like this map, or TV broadcast area, or a transportation network, a watershed, a milkshed. A milkshed is just where all the dairy farms feed into kind of a central processing. So it serves a function. It doesn't have like an official border that would be on a map, and usually there's a central hub. Sometimes you'll be asked why some of these functional regions are becoming obsolete. So think about like TV stations, radio stations, somewhat transportation networks. And that is because of technology and the internet. So you no longer need to be in Biddeford's broadcast area to hear their radio because of the internet, Sirius XM, etc. Same thing, you can get a lot of TV programming online, on YouTube, on all the various streaming services. You don't need to be within that functional region anymore. Same thing with transportation. With more people working remotely, they don't necessarily need to take the public transportation down into the downtown node of that region. So some regions becoming a little obsolete because of technology and the internet, but not all. Last is vernacular. So these are perceptual regions. The other term for this is perceptual. And it's where there's no actual border. So if you were to think about like going from down east Maine to mid coast Maine, you don't cross over some border where you're like, now I'm in mid coast, now I'm in down east. It's a perceptual region where it's kind of fuzzy where those things end. Same thing with saying like the West, the Pacific, the Southwest, the South. I grew up in Ohio, and there are good chunks of Ohio that consider them the South, even though they are on the border of Canada. Again, like eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, parts of West Virginia don't really even have like a perceptual affiliation, where they're just kind of like, am I Midwest? Am I the Mid-Atlantic? What am I? So some places don't even have an alignment, but those are vernacular, perceptual, because there's no physical border that you're crossing to get to them. Okay. Last thing is when reading maps, you will analyze or look for the distribution, or sometimes you'll hear or read the spatial pattern. So distribution, spatial pattern just means how those things are arranged, items on a map are arranged in a space. You could either comment on the density of things on the map, so that's the amount of something in a specified unit of space. So like A is very dense, B is less dense. Okay, so density, just how crowded or not crowded is a unit of space. More often, you're going to be talking about the concentration. So what's the spread of something in a space? This is flip-flopped from your notes, but dispersed is where it's kind of all spread out. It could be a lot of things, but they're all kind of spread out. Clustered or agglomerated is where they are clumped or clustered. Okay, could be a lot of them, could be not a lot, but still in clumps. So it might not be dense, or it could be very dense, but if they are in clumps, then it is considered clustered or agglomerated. If you're ever asked about agglomeration, that's where your cluster is kind of snowballing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, where the cluster leads to more things clustering, kind of like a magnet. It just clusters, clusters, clusters. Agglomerates, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, that is it for today. So remember to go back to Schoology, take the quiz, again, as many times as you want until you get the score you want, up until the unit test. And you will turn these notes in at the end of the unit on the unit test day. Let me know if you have any questions in class, and we'll practice with all these materials.